Hello, my name is Katina Lilios, and I directed the excavations at the burial cave of Bolores with colleagues Joe Allen Arts and Anna Waterman from the University of Iowa. Bolores is a small artificial cave, about 5 by 3 meters, which faces the east and was carved from a soft sandstone cliff. It was used as the burial ground for a group of at least 36 people who died between 2800 and 2600 BCE. In this short presentation, I will share some of the results of our work, which was supported by the University of Iowa, the National Science Foundation, and the Câmara Municipal of Torres Vedras. Other presentations on this website will provide further details, such as the results from the studies of the human remains. Bolores is located in the Cisandro Valley in west-central Portugal, some 15 kilometers from the Atlantic coast. At the time Bolores was used as a burial space, the environment was different than it is today. It was somewhat more forested then, made up largely of evergreen oak, and the Cisandro was an estuary, which would have been a rich source of plants and animal life for the people in the region. Not surprisingly, Bolores is not the only site in the area. Archaeologists have discovered numerous prehistoric burials and settlements along the Cisandro, shown on the map by the black dots. And some were contemporary with Bolores, such as Zambujal, located just 2 kilometers from Bolores. Bolores was used as a burial space primarily during the period that we call the Late Neolithic or Copper Age, which lasted between about 3500 and 2200 BCE. This was an interesting period in the history of the Iberian Peninsula. At that time, farming peoples, who often lived on hilltops, began to differentiate themselves with exotic objects such as beads made from special stones, ivory from North Africa, and decorated pottery. Not everyone got these special goods, however, so archaeologists believe that some individuals or groups exerted power over other individuals and communities or had a different status than others. Around 2200 BCE, a big change occurred throughout Iberia, and many of the sites that people lived in or were using as burials were abandoned. Many of the trade networks collapsed, and burial patterns shifted to individual graves. Like many archaeologists, I have wondered why and how these changes occurred. Was it due to climate or environmental changes? Was it due to social unrest or conflict between enemy groups or people of different social status? Was it due to migration? Was it due to a combination of factors? Because the radiocarbon dates at Bolores, taken from 11 different individuals buried at the site, cluster in a relatively short period of time, between about 2800 to 2600 BCE, though it was also briefly used in what is known as the Bronze Age around 1800 BCE, we thought the site would provide some insights into the kinds of lives that people led in the region. We decided to excavate Bolores in order to find out whether there was any evidence in their bones, such as violence or poor health, or significantly different diets among the people buried that might provide a clue into what people were experiencing, at least through their bodies, at the time. My collaborators will provide further details on what we learned. I will focus on our methods, what we learned about the objects found at the site, and how the space was used. Bolores was discovered by local landowners in the 1980s, but historical references to the site go back into the 19th century. After securing permission from the landowners and the Portuguese Ministry of Culture, we carried out excavations at the site over 4 seasons between 2007 and 2012. I worked with a small team, which included Leonel Trindade and students from the University of Iowa and the University of Michigan. We set up units of 1 by 1 meters and slowly exposed thousands of broken bones and objects found in the soil using brushes and bamboo skewers. The total station was used to record the location of each find, and hundreds of photos were taken to record the location and context of everything we found. Bolores, like all burials of the time, was a collective burial. People were buried side by side, and when room was needed, bodies were moved aside. As you can see in this slide, the burial space was divided into 3 chambers, which we called zones 1 to 3, separated by large sandstone boulders shown in dark gray. These boulders were found on the south ends of Units 3 and 4 and in Unit 11. The slide also shows flat limestone slabs shown in light gray on the map. Bodies were apparently placed around these flat slabs. Perhaps the slabs marked family groups, perhaps they provided a platform to stand on, perhaps they served both purposes. They were important, as beneath them we found ochre, a red and sometimes yellow iron oxide that people must have placed as part of the burial ritual. This slide shows the age of the individuals found in each of the three areas. As you can see, adults, adolescents, and children were found in all of the three areas or three zones. Perhaps we are looking at family groups within each of these zones. We are carrying out ancient DNA studies in order to evaluate this possibility. Both primary interments of bodies as well as secondary burials were found at Bolores. Notably, we found a bone bundle made up of the bones of two individuals. There was also evidence for defleshing in the fragment of a skull bone. People at this time clearly interacted with the dead more intimately than we do in the United States today. One of the most surprising things about Bolores was its material culture. There were relatively few objects placed for the dead at the site, in contrast to the other sites in the region, such as Cova da Mora and Cabeça da Ruda. Furthermore, some of the objects found at Bolores are a bit unusual, indeed unique. For example, we found a quartzite bola with a packed groove around its circumference and no evidence for it being used as a hammer. We also found a limestone mace head with a curved groove running around it. We also found a polished calcite crystal, which is sometimes found at sites of the time period, as well as a bone handle. The three stone objects suggest they served an important ritual or symbolic function. Interestingly, all these objects were found in Zone 3. Perhaps there was a special person or group buried in this zone. In general, the use of space and the nature and placement of objects at Bolores suggest two things. First, the group buried at the site appears to have been distinctive from other groups in the area. And second, individuals were spatially marked and distinguished by different kinds of objects, suggesting some differentiation within the group.